3, 2, 1, go.
You're listening to The Kyle Chambers Show.
And welcome to The Kyle Chambers Show. My name is Kyle Chambers, and today on the podcast, I'm with Mark Hartwick. Mark has been a paramedic for 14 years, and he works in Haldimand. Thank you for joining the show today, Mark.
Oh, no problem, buddy. Thanks for having me.
What inspired you to become a paramedic?
So for me, I really wanted to help others. I know it's kind of cliche to say, but so I went to Brock University. I started out in the kinesiology program, thought about being a phys ed teacher, thought about maybe athletic therapy. Got about halfway through that, realized that wasn't quite for me, wanted a little more excitement. I had a buddy who was a paramedic and loved it, so I thought I'd apply and give it a shot. And then since day one, it was a fit. Loved the job, and it's been great. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's great. It's amazing how when you start out in one career, things can kind of morph into a different career. And I know you're a big sports fan, so it makes sense why you wanted to be a gym teacher. But it's great you're able to help people in other ways as well. It
is, yeah. I'm surrounded by enough teachers with my wife and friends and everything. But not that, she teaches kindergarten, so I couldn't do what she did. And I'm sure she couldn't do what I do as well. But I'm very happy how things worked out. What
are some common misconceptions about paramedics?
One of the big thing is a lot of the older population still calls us ambulance drivers. So they think they call us, we come, we pick them up, we just drive them to the hospital. That's all we do. But it's a lot more than that. It's a lot of high stress, a lot of critical thinking. Another thing we deal with a lot is people think, I'll just call an ambulance. I get to go to the hospital. I get a bed before everybody else. But unfortunately, it's a triage system. You get to go in line. If you called because your knee's been sore for 3 weeks, guess what? You're behind the person having a heart attack that just drove themselves to the hospital. But other than that, besides the ambulance driver stuff, we do CPR. We give a list of medications, manage airways. We have a pretty dynamic job. A lot of things we need to do, being physically fit, being able to lift patients, equipment. It's a high-stress job, but it's worth it in the end.
How did COVID-19 affect how your job was conducted?
COVID-19 was a huge challenge for us. From all the personal protective equipment that we had to do, all the screening questions. So, it kind of caught everybody off guard by the whole pandemic. So, you'd wear your gloves and your mask, and then you'd go in and you'd have a set of questions. You'd take the patient's temperature, and then sometimes you'd have to back out of the call, go put on a lot more PPE to protect yourself, to protect the patient. A lot of disinfecting, a lot of communication with allied services. If you had a patient with COVID-19 come to the hospital, you just couldn't wheel them in the front door and expose everybody else. So you had to communicate. It was pretty high stress there for a bit, especially at the beginning when people didn't really know what COVID-19 was or how it affected everything. You didn't want to bring it home to your family. That was a pretty big stress. In the very beginning, getting exposed, had to isolate from the family was tough for a bit, but we got through it. Now, hopefully we'll be better prepared for the next pandemic. Knock on wood, there won't be one, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, much respect to all the first responders that had to go through that. It was a very tough time not knowing how things would work out really all over the world, especially in Canada and the USA with the different laws and rules. But if it wasn't for the paramedics, firefighters, police officers, we wouldn't be able to get through it. So,
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
How do you balance your personal life and professional life?
So what I like to do is I like to leave work at work. You don't want to bring calls home with you. We do have a high stress job. Some days are easier than others. And then when I come home through the door, the wife asks you how the day was, and it was a good day. It wasn't a great day, but you don't need to bring that burden home on them. And we see some stuff that a lot of people don't get to see, or a lot of people wouldn't understand, but besides other first responders. But having a balance, having a good support team at home, having friends, having colleagues, it's a good foundation to have. And, I like to leave my work life at work and then my home life at home.
What advice would you have for somebody that wants to become a paramedic?
So I'd make sure it's the job for you. It's a pretty big commitment. It's a lot of stress. Shift work is a whole new dynamic on its own. Working nights, working weekends, working holidays. You're not always there for every baseball game, hockey game. You got to know that going into it. At the end of the day, I don't get to go home at 5:00 every day, no matter what. If I am on a late call and, sometimes it's 3-4 hours before I come home and I don't get to tuck my kids in at night. So that's part of the gig. Other than that, be able to deal with I know kind of cliche to say, but the blood and the trauma and the emotional and psychological stressors that you see. You go into a lot of situations, a lot of good ones and a lot of not so good ones, at how people live their lives. And so you got to be able to deal with that. But again, having that support system, finding that balance in life to, figure things out, how you deal with it. But, for the right person, it's a great job. Absolutely. There's, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
How has technology and AI changed the way that paramedics have conducted their business?
So technology has been huge for us. So back in the day, we used to, starting the career, we used to find it by paper maps, finding people's addresses. So a lot of the job is, the call comes in, you get your information from dispatch, and you have to find so-and-so little address on so-and-so street in a town you've never heard before. So it can be quite a thing. So now with GPS and different technologies, they can give you turn by turn where you're going, how to get there. And then if you need, you have dispatch with you to help and tell you, which hospital you want to go to when you make that decision and where to go. But another piece of the cool thing we have now, it's called an auto pulse. So it does, it's a machine that does CPR, helps you do it. And it does it much more effective than a human can do. So it's pretty cool to see technology come, and I'm sure there'll be more and more advances as in the years go by in my career here and then when I'm done. But it's nice to see things go. We also have power stretchers now, so that they're battery powered with hydraulics, so that you're not lifting a 100-pound stretcher up with another 200, 300, 400-pound person on top. So it's nice to things to make our job easier and help lessen the lifting that we have to do.
That's good. Technology's helped out in a lot of different ways, and it makes sense that technology has kind of advanced in the policing, firefighting, and paramedic first responder world as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining the show today.
No problem, Kyle. Thanks for having me.